She was clearly a virtuous wife, but for a moment of pleasure, she betrayed her husband. And solely because of her momentary indulgence, she pushed her once harmonious family into an abyss of despair. Connie was originally an elegant and graceful middle-aged woman. She not only had a lively and adorable child, but also a highly successful husband. The family's ever-growing wealth allowed them to purchase a luxurious villa in the suburbs. However, a sudden storm completely shattered this warm and peaceful life. That day, Connie went to the city center to buy things as usual, but unexpectedly, fierce winds suddenly struck, making her stagger and struggle to stand firm. Even though Connie waved her arms constantly trying to hail a taxi, not a single one was willing to stop for her. Left with no choice, she had to drag her weary body forward. Yet as if fate was deliberately playing tricks, the wildly raging wind blew her precisely into the arms of a handsome young man. And the gears of fate began to turn quietly during this unexpected encounter. Staggering to the side, Connie hoped the man could help her stop a taxi. But the result was disappointing. Paul angrily kicked a nearby manhole cover, and the ridiculous sight made Connie unable to help but laugh. Connie's knee was already covered in blood. Seeing this, Paul warmly invited her to his home to tend to the wound, indicating his apartment was just upstairs. Although Connie was extremely reluctant, Paul's deep and humorous eyes had already captivated her. She gave up on the taxi passing right before her eyes and instead walked into the apartment building with Paul. Little did she know this small action would completely alter her destiny. The broken elevator inside the apartment building rang like an alarm bell in Connie's uneasy heart. She wanted to find balance between reason and impulse. But Paul's urging voice acted like an irresistible magic, tugging at her heartstrings and making her unable to resist arriving at Paul's door. The moment she stepped inside, Connie was shocked by the sight before her. The room was filled with all kinds of books displayed everywhere. An aura of time and the quaint scent of old books lingered in every corner. So, Paul was a somewhat successful book dealer. Even though his words were gentle and his manners appropriate, leaving a very good impression on Connie, her alertness did not lessen in the slightest. Connie then went into the bathroom, locked the door, and tended to her wound. However, when Connie finished tending to her wound and prepared to leave, Paul thoughtfully prepared boiled hot tea for her. But Connie was constantly thinking about her son who had just gotten home from school, so she asked to borrow Paul's phone to check on him. Yet Connie was completely unaware at this moment that her composed demeanor and captivating figure stirred ripples in Paul's heart. So while Connie was seriously making the phone call, Paul quietly brought ice and thoughtfully applied a cold compress to the wound on her leg. This sudden, intimate contact caused an indescribable flutter in Connie's heart. Flustered, she wanted to leave immediately, but Paul was unwilling to let her go just yet.
Hey, before you go, take your book. No?
I couldn't. I don't.
Sure you can. Souvenir.
Following Paul's guidance, Connie found the book he mentioned, and Paul meaningfully asked her to read its contents. As Connie's gaze wandered over the words, her emotions gradually stirred with each sentence. At this moment, an ambiguous atmosphere seemed to slowly draw their two hearts closer, but the difference in their status and the complicated situation made Connie want to retreat and not stay any longer. Yet her palpable fluster enveloped her like a mist. Watching Connie leave, Paul, still unsatisfied, extended an invitation, hoping she would visit him to relieve boredom in her free time. After returning home, Connie told her husband about the day's events. Hearing this, her husband was immensely grateful for Paul's helpfulness. Little did he know this seemingly ordinary little incident would completely destroy their once warm life. The next morning, before going out, Connie's gaze unintentionally fell on the book Paul had given her the day before. Filled with curiosity, she opened it, and a card fell out. She bent down to pick it up. Paul's phone number was clearly written on it. Perhaps fate was playing tricks again. Even though Connie understood Paul's ill intentions, she still couldn't resist dialing that number on her way to shop downtown. But all she heard was the echo of unanswered rings. Connie's heart was instantly filled with an indescribable sense of loss. Just when she was about to give up, a sudden voice on the phone broke through her wandering thoughts. Even though Paul only spoke a few simple words of greeting, a shy blush rose to Connie's cheeks. Paul invited her back to the apartment once more. As Paul helped Connie remove her coat, his hand inadvertently brushed against her skin. Seeing Connie completely off guard, Paul couldn't help but smile knowingly to himself. He then brewed coffee for Connie, his clumsy manner making her laugh despite herself. Just then, Connie's gaze was unintentionally drawn to the Braille book on the table. Paul approached slowly with the coffee, noticing her interest, and asked her to close her eyes before decisively taking her hand. As her fingertips traced the embossed text, Connie's thoughts drifted, sinking into a profound reverie. Paul's witty translations echoed beside her like a gentle melody stirring long-dormant feelings deep within, while the closeness of his touch ensnared her in shyness. Yet Connie ultimately found balance between reason and desire. Unable to let this twisted affection grow unchecked, she decisively pulled herself from the flustered emotions. On the way home, waves of unease and guilt weighed heavily on her chest, so she bought her husband the trendiest clothes and rushed to deliver them to his office. Edward was surprised by his wife's visit, but the warm atmosphere between them dissolved his slight doubts. When night fell thick like ink, Connie's thoughts drifted back to Paul's apartment. Lost in an inescapable haze, she remained oblivious to Edward's concerned gaze beside her. Edward didn't overthink it. Assuming his wife was simply exhausted from daily stresses, Connie felt as if she were falling into an endless abyss, as Paul's gentle and tender charm acted like an irresistible force that lured her back to his apartment. At this moment, the suggestive music surrounding her reverberated through Connie's mind. Paul's sweet words felt like burning flames, instantly igniting the passion in her heart. However, the music stuttered at this moment, like a wake-up call knocking on the window lattice of her conscience. Connie turned to leave, but returned moments later after forgetting her coat. Paul's restless longing could no longer be contained. Under his ardent advance, Connie's resolve crumbled. His passionate energy swept her into this forbidden pleasure. Even on the journey home, her mind remained turbulent, unaware her life had veered irrevocably off course. In the following days, Connie secretly met Paul behind her husband's back. Outwardly, her home life seemed harmonious, like a perfect painting. But in truth, she couldn't stop returning to Paul's apartment, consumed by their passionate encounters. Their bond intensified. Every entangled moment sparked dangerous flames, causing Connie to coldly reject Edward's tender invitations. Her dismissiveness deeply wounded Edward, leaving him lost and confused. And as time passed, the hidden truth began to emerge. During a restaurant date, Paul and Connie's intimacy was witnessed by Edward's subordinate. The next day, Connie dressed elegantly to go out, but Edward invited her to a midday gathering. His eyes were drawn to the stylish clothes Connie had just bought, ones he had never seen before. Predictably, Connie brushed him off, claiming a spa appointment. However, after Connie left home, Edward called the spa, only to receive a chilly reply stating she had no appointment scheduled today. His heart sank instantly. At that moment, Connie arrived downstairs at Paul's apartment, only to unexpectedly run into her old friends. Unable to refuse their enthusiasm, she joined them at a cafe. She called Paul from the cafe phone to explain. To her shock, Paul showed up uninvited. Connie lied to Tracy about visiting the restroom, only to surrender to Paul's fervor in a hidden corner. When she returned flustered, Tracy shared her own unforgettable tale of infidelity.
And then something would happen. Someone finds out or someone falls in love and it ends disastrously.
When?
It was a long time ago. And it's the one thing in my life I would undo.
Tracy's confession resonated deep within Connie. Regret flooded her. She resolved to end the affair, yet her desires far outweighed her fragile self-control. Meanwhile, Edward's work faced disaster due to an employee's critical error. Edward fired the man on the spot, denouncing his disloyalty to the company. Those words shattered the employee's composure.
Wait, you're telling me about family? Well, you don't know the first goddamn thing about it. Take a goddamn look at that.
Hearing what the employee revealed, even if Edward had an oxygen tank, it wouldn't ease the suffocating weight on his chest. His heart felt as if it were being torn apart by invisible pain, and given Connie's recent strange behavior, it was hard for him not to suspect her of being unfaithful, so he hired a private investigator at a high price. Meanwhile, Connie seemed to sense something, an indescribable unease rising within her. Flustered thoughts made her fumble, instantly turning the entire kitchen chaotic. During dinner, Edward informed his wife he would be away on business for a few days. This sudden news pulled Connie from her earlier thoughts, briefly freeing her from that inner struggle and unease. The next day, she put on vibrant clothes again, intending to surprise Paul. Little did she know the challenge meant for her had already begun spreading silently. Meanwhile, Edward at the office had lost his usual composure. Connie then began their time of pleasure, intimately entangled right in the pitch-dark movie theater. Yet every one of their close actions had already been secretly captured by a camera. Recklessly indulgent, Connie had forgotten her child's dismissal time, leaving her son waiting silently at the school gate. When she slowly opened her eyes, she suddenly realized her negligence and rushed straight to the kindergarten to pick up her son who had waited for hours. After returning home, Connie felt overwhelming regret. She gradually realized her life had derailed. That momentary indulgence and passion had immersed her in this twisted relationship. The ensuing consequences were quietly eroding her once warm family. Just as she was about to call Paul to break things off, her son's voice snapped her back to reality.
You're crying, Mom.
Mommy's just a little sad, that's all. Come on, I'll take you to bed. Let's get you into bed.
After countless inner struggles, Connie resolved to cut ties with Paul, trying to free herself from this chaotic affair. On the way to Paul's apartment, Connie's swirling emotions nearly caused a serious car accident. When she arrived at Paul's building with a heavy heart, she found Paul intimately close with a strange woman, and her heart completely shattered. Long suppressed emotions surged within her like a tide. She chased after them through pouring rain. Seeing them so affectionate, Connie's heart felt stabbed by countless tiny knives. Losing all reason, she physically attacked Paul right in public, yet she still couldn't resist following Paul back into the apartment. Connie tried to escape from the root of this nightmare, but Paul forcefully held the elevator door. She broke free from Paul's grip and left through another exit. Paul stood like an insurmountable barrier, blocking her path once more. Connie's inner struggle ultimately couldn't stop that desire, and she fell back into the abyss. Meanwhile, Edward had already received photos of his wife meeting Paul privately. Seeing Connie intimately close with another man, Edward was instantly consumed by rage and betrayal. His world completely collapsed, unsure how to continue their marriage. Lost and dazed, he wandered to Paul's apartment building. At the very moment of his hesitation, he just missed Connie leaving Paul's apartment. After a fierce internal battle, Edward decided to face reality. With heavy steps, he found Paul. Learning Edward was Connie's husband, Paul showed no panic, calmly inviting him in for a drink to drown his sorrows. But danger was already quietly approaching. Accepting the liquor Paul offered, Edward quietly entered the bedroom. Seeing the disheveled bedding, shame surged within him like violent waves, mercilessly attacking his reason and self-respect. But spotting the crystal ball he'd gifted his wife on the nightstand, an unspeakable emotion overwhelmed him. It was the token of love he'd given her, holding all the promises of their marriage. Fueled by alcohol, broken thoughts nearly consumed him. Edward suddenly felt his breath grow rapid and heavy. His vision blurred severely as if the whole world was spinning. His emotions spiraling out of control, he smashed the crystal ball against Paul. The sudden impact knocked Paul unconscious instantly. At this very moment, Edward's heart was in utter turmoil, and such a massive upheaval plunged him into a daze. After regaining some composure, he swiftly began cleaning the scene. He meticulously erased all traces linking himself to the place and wiped away the bloodstains. Just then, the landline rang with his wife's voice.
I have to end this. I can't do it anymore. I can't live like this. I'm so tired of lying and hurting my family. I'm sorry.
Her tearful confession filled Edward with complicated emotions, but it was already too late. He deleted his wife's message, failing to notice her phone number recorded in the address book beside the landline. Edward then placed the body into the trunk of his car. Though Edward's heart was utterly exhausted, he still changed his clothes and attended his son's performance. Connie noticed Edward's inner turmoil but dismissed it, assuming it was just rush from his hurried journey. When they saw their son's outstanding performance on stage, the couple couldn't help but smile with happiness. Warmth intertwined in their hearts as if nothing had ever happened. But just as Edward was driving his son home, their car was hit from behind, and he quickly got out to press the damaged trunk shut. Finally, with sheer force, the trunk snapped perfectly into place. Just as Edward intended to leave, the driver who caused the accident kindly approached to check on them.
We'll deal with it tomorrow.
It'll just take a second.
No!
By the time deep night fell, Connie was already deep in sleep. Edward immediately drove to the outskirts to dispose of the body in a desolate landfill. In the following days, Edward's world was consumed by terror and anguish. He silently endured the pain of his wife's betrayal and the fear of his own unthinkable act being exposed, the crushing pressure nearly suffocating him. His internal struggle left him disoriented, so much so that he would often put on mismatched shoes in the morning. Yet despite Edward's meticulous efforts to cover every trace, barely 2.5 weeks passed before sanitation workers discovered Paul's body. Police then arrived at their doorstep after finding Connie's number in Paul's address book. When Connie was informed of Paul's death, she was overwhelmed and couldn't accept the news. The grief hit her like a blade cutting through her soul. But with Edward beside her, she had to feign composure, lying that she'd only had book-buying dealings with Paul, trying to hide their affair. Yet the officer's piercing questions pressed like gathering storm clouds, the suffocating pressure nearly overwhelming her. Fearing exposure, Edward stepped in and spoke firmly.
My wife has told you everything she knows, so have I, so if you don't mind, we'd like to get back to our son.
All right.
With no evidence for charges, they had no choice but to leave reluctantly. Paul's departure hit Connie like a sudden icy gale, shattering her fragile heart as indescribable pain tore at her soul. When her husband entered the room, Connie completely shattered. Sorrow burst open like floodgates. She lowered her head as tears silently fell, crying hidden in shadows, as if the entire world had cruelly abandoned her. After composing herself, Connie took her husband's clothes to the dry cleaner, but upon retrieving them, she discovered a mysterious letter in the pocket. She opened it with curiosity, only to find photos of her secret meetings with Paul staring back. At that moment, suspicion and fear spread through her, forcing her to question her husband's motive for the killing. Returning home, Connie was horrified to find the crystal ball she'd gifted Paul now sitting undisturbed in their house, cementing her suspicions about Edward. After everyone left, Connie confronted Edward directly.
You over and over and over, you lied to me. Over and over and over.
Edward, please.
No, you don't talk to me now. Because I know you, Connie. I know you and I hate you. I didn't want to kill him, I wanted to kill you!
At that moment, Connie was filled with deep regret and shame, and under Edward's cold questioning, she could only stand there helpless and speechless. Their once warm family lay completely shattered in the wake of this storm. Yet in front of their son, they still kept up appearances of peace and normalcy. As Connie looked through the memory-filled photo album, her thoughts drifted to the crystal ball Edward had given her. She turned it upside down, slowly twisting open the base, and discovered romantic words her husband had long treasured inside. She gently unfolded it and found an old photo of the three of them together. With a heartfelt message written on the back, "Connie is the greatest gift in my life." At that moment, a flood of memories swept over her heart, and all the warmth they once shared now felt like a distant, unreachable dream. Edward's heart also drifted in this turmoil, trapped in struggle, unable to let go yet incapable of moving on. Ultimately, Connie burned the photos of her and Paul to conceal her husband's crime. Watching the raging flames, she recalled her first meeting with Paul. If she hadn't accepted his invitation then, if she'd taken that taxi and left, this tragedy filled with regret might never have happened. But life has no what-ifs. At life's crossroads, every choice is like a pebble cast into water. The ripples spread, gradually reshaping the entire surface. Connie's choice ignited the fire of desire and unleashed an irreversible storm. The film masterfully portrays the devastating consequences of desire and the human struggle between love and pain. Family fractures may seem silent and invisible, yet they can make turning back impossible. The price paid by Connie and her family serves as a lesson for us all when facing choices. Life's breaking point isn't always sudden disaster, but the slow spread of overlooked cracks. Do you have the courage to mend them? Can you find true peace after the storm? This is the ultimate question the film leaves us with. Cherishing the hard-won happiness of the present is the truth we must hold closest now.